The Imperial Madrid. Real Madrid didn't just win the first 5 European Cups between 1955 and 1960, they invented European dominance, and they did it through a midfield that made every other team look like they were playing a different sport. Alfredo Di Stefano and Ferenc Puskás controlled every single final like puppet masters, pulling strings while opposition midfielders chased shadows and questioned their career choices. This wasn't just superiority, it was humiliation served on a silver platter 5 years running. Di Stefano was the blueprint for the complete midfielder before anyone even knew that position existed. He covered every blade of grass, scored goals like a striker, created chances like a playmaker, and defended like his life depended on it. The Argentine-turned-Spanish legend didn't just dominate one phase of play, he dominated all of them simultaneously for 90 minutes straight. Opposing managers would watch him and realize their tactical plans were irrelevant because one man was doing the work of 3. The 1960 final against Eintracht Frankfurt became the stuff of legend, a 7-3 demolition at Hampden Park that's still replayed in documentary footage today. Di Stefano scored 3, Puskás banged in 4, but it was the midfield control that made the goals inevitable. Frankfurt's midfielders spent the entire match running after the ball like kids chasing a balloon in the wind, never quite catching it, always one step behind. Real Madrid completed passes in triangles while Frankfurt completed laps. 5 consecutive European Cups, 5 different teams humbled, 5 years of midfield masterclasses that set the standard for everything that came after. When people talk about European royalty, this is where it started, in a Madrid midfield that turned football's biggest stage into their personal training ground. Di Stefano and Puskás didn't just win trophies, they rewrote what midfield domination could look like. Brazil's Samba engine. The 1970 World Cup in Mexico belongs to Pelé in the history books, but anyone who actually watched that tournament knows the truth. Gerson, Clodoaldo, and Rivellino formed a midfield trinity that turned football into art and opposing teams into spectators at their own demise. These 3 Brazilians didn't just control games, they conducted symphonies while their opponents frantically chased the ball like it owed them money. No team pressed them, no team could. Italy rolled into the final with their famous catenaccio, the defensive system that had suffocated Europe for a decade. The Italians were masters of sitting deep, absorbing pressure, and killing games through sheer defensive discipline. Then they met Brazil's midfield and got absolutely humiliated 4-1, watching helplessly as the Brazilians completed over 200 passes and treated the World Cup final like a training session. Catenaccio died that day in the Azteca Stadium, murdered by 3 midfielders who played football like it was supposed to be played. Clodoaldo's piece of individual brilliance in that final has become folklore, the moment that perfectly captures Brazil's dominance. Deep in his own half, he receives the ball and proceeds to dribble past 5 Italian defenders in one flowing sequence, making them look like traffic cones placed there for decoration. The Italians lunged, grabbed, and chased, but Clodoaldo just kept gliding forward, the ball glued to his feet. Defending became a pointless exercise, like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. Brazil went through the entire tournament unbeaten, 6 games of pure midfield perfection. While Pelé scored the goals and Jairzinho broke records, it was Gerson's passing range, Clodoaldo's energy, and Rivellino's creativity that made everything possible. Milan's Dutch Diamonds. AC Milan between 1988 and 1990 didn't just win back-to-back European Cups, they dominated European football with a midfield triangle so perfect it looked mathematically designed. Ruud Gullit, Frank Rijkaard, and Marco van Basten formed the spine of Arrigo Sacchi's revolution. 3 Dutchmen who combined technical brilliance with tactical discipline so precise you could set your watch to it. Every other team in Europe studied them, copied them, and still couldn't beat them because talent plus system equals unstoppable. Rijkaard sat deep as the shield, breaking up attacks with the elegance of a ballet dancer and the bite of a Rottweiler. Gullit roamed forward like a force of nature, dreadlocks flying, scoring goals and creating chaos in equal measure. Van Basten, technically a striker, dropped so deep into midfield that defenders didn't know whether to follow him or stay home. The balance was accidental genius, three players whose individual strengths covered each other's weaknesses so completely that Milan's midfield had no gaps, no off-switches, no bad days. The 5-0 demolition of Real Madrid in the 1989 European Cup semi-final remains one of football's greatest humiliations. At the Bernabeu, Madrid's sacred fortress, Milan's midfield put on a clinic so dominant that the Spanish crowd fell into stunned silence by half-time. Gullit scored twice. The midfield completed passing sequences that left Madrid chasing ghosts, and by the end, even the home fans were applauding the visitors. It wasn't just a win, it was a statement written in capital letters and underlined 3 times. Back-to-back European Cups in 1989 and 1990 cemented this midfield's legacy. Technical quality meeting tactical perfection. 3 Dutchmen redefining what a midfield triangle could accomplish when every piece fit together flawlessly. Milan didn't just win trophies, they set a standard that clubs would spend the next 3 decades trying to recreate. Good luck with that. France's world beaters. France between 1998 and 2000 achieved what most national teams can only dream about, winning the World Cup and Euro 2000 back-to-back with a midfield that made football look unfairly easy. Zinedine Zidane, Didier Deschamps and Patrick Vieira formed a triangle of destruction so perfectly balanced that opposing midfielders would finish matches wondering what just happened to them. Deschamps shielded the defense like a human wall, Vieira powered forward with the engine of a freight train, and Zidane orchestrated everything with the touch of a virtuoso. Perfect chemistry, perfect timing, perfect domination. The 1998 World Cup final against Brazil should have been competitive, a clash between football's greatest nation and the host country desperate for glory. Instead, it turned into a masterclass as France's midfield controlled 65% of possession and nullified Ronaldo so completely he became a ghost in his own final. Zidane scored twice with headers, but it was the midfield stranglehold on the game that made those goals inevitable. Brazil's attacking trio of Ronaldo, Rivaldo and Bebeto barely touched the ball because France's midfield never gave it to them. 3-0 and it could have been 6. 2 years later at Euro 2000, the Vieira-Emmanuel Petit partnership went into overdrive, destroying Italy in the final with the kind of midfield dominance that writes itself into history books. Italy tried to match France physically and got steamrolled. They tried to outpass France technically and got schooled. Golden goal in extra time, and France stood on top of European football having won everything worth winning in 24 months. Vieira won every tackle, Deschamps recycled every ball, Zidane created every moment of magic. This French midfield didn't just define an era, they owned it completely. World Cup winners, European champions, and the blueprint for how a national team midfield should function when every piece clicks into place. United's treble triangle. Manchester United's 1999 treble gets remembered for Solskjaer's toe poke and Sheringham's equaliser, but the real story is written in midfield. Roy Keane, Paul Scholes and David Beckham carried that treble on their backs through 63 matches of pure relentless drive, creating chances, winning battles and refusing to accept defeat even when logic said they should. This wasn't the most technical midfield in history, but it was the most mentally indestructible, 3 players who would rather die on the pitch than lose a football match. The Juventus semi-final second leg in Turin stands as Roy Keane's finest hour and cruelest punishment all in one night. United went 2-0 down in 11 minutes against a Juventus midfield featuring Zidane, Davids and Deschamps, 3 future legends playing at home. Keane scored a bullet header to drag United back into the tie, then picked up a yellow card for a tackle on Zidane that ruled him out of the final. Most players would have mentally checked out right there, heartbroken and defeated. Keane went into overdrive, tackling, passing, screaming, leading, running the game from deep like a man possessed, dragging his teammates to a 3-2 comeback win that sent United to Barcelona. Alex Ferguson later said Keane's performance that night was the greatest he'd ever seen from any player. The Champions League final against Bayern Munich in Barcelona showcased the midfield's refusal to accept reality. United trailed 1-0 with injury time ticking down, 90 minutes away from ending the season with nothing but regret. Beckham whipped in corner after corner with laser precision, the midfield kept winning second balls and recycling possession, and somehow, impossibly, United scored twice in stoppage time to complete the treble. The midfield generated those corners through sheer will, kept believing when everyone else had given up, and forced fate to bend in their direction. Keane and Scholes both missed the final through suspension, watching from the stands as their teammates completed the job they'd started. That treble belongs to them anyway, carried through months of grinding out results when the strikers went cold and the defense looked shaky. Premier League, FA Cup, Champions League, all won by a midfield that simply refused to lose. Triangle of champions, forged in fire. Chelsea's Jose Machine. Jose Mourinho walked into Chelsea in 2004 and built a midfield fortress so impenetrable that attacking it felt like running into a brick wall. Claude Makélélé, Frank Lampard and Michael Essien formed the spine of back-to-back Premier League titles in 2005 and 2006, combining defensive steel with attacking firepower in a way English football had never seen. Teams tried playing through Chelsea's midfield and got swallowed whole, attacks dying before reaching the penalty box. Makélélé changed football so fundamentally a position got named after him. The Makélélé role became shorthand for the defensive midfielder sitting in front of the back four, breaking up play and recycling possession through pure positional intelligence. Real Madrid let him leave in 2003 thinking he was replaceable, then spent a decade searching for another Makélélé and never finding one. Zidane later admitted Madrid made a catastrophic mistake, that Makélélé was the oil making their Galactico engine run. Lampard scoring 20+ goals from midfield, both title-winning seasons, remains one of the Premier League's most ridiculous anomalies. Midfielders don't outscore strikers, but Lampard did it season after season, arriving late into the box like a heat-seeking missile. His partnership with Makélélé was symbiotic perfection. Makélélé won the ball, Lampard scored the goals, opponents spent 90 minutes wondering how to stop both. They never figured it out. Michael Essien arrived from Lyon for £24.4 million in 2005 and completed the puzzle, adding raw power and box-to-box athleticism. Essien could tackle like Makélélé, shoot like Lampard, run endlessly, and play multiple positions when Mourinho needed flexibility. 2 Premier League titles, 15 goals conceded at home across 2 seasons, a midfield opposing managers studied obsessively but couldn't replicate. Chelsea's machine didn't just dominate England, it redefined midfield dominance completely. Barcelona's tiki-taka cult tier, Pep Guardiola's Barcelona between 2008 and 2012 didn't just dominate football, they turned it into a religion where possession was worship and passing was prayer. Xavi Hernandez, Andres Iniesta and Sergio Busquets formed a midfield trio that completed over 900 passes per game, a number so absurd it sounds made up until you watch the matches and realize opponents literally couldn't get the ball. This wasn't just superiority, it was psychological warfare disguised as beautiful football, a pass-to-death strategy that left grown men questioning their life choices on the pitch. The statistics from this era read like a glitch in the Matrix. Opponents touched the ball roughly 30% of the time and spent the other 70% chasing shadows in their own half, running themselves into exhaustion, while Barcelona's midfield controlled tempo like conductors, leading an orchestra. Xavi dictated play with passes so precise they could thread needles. Iniesta glided past defenders like they were statues, and Busquets sat deep, intercepting everything with the positional awareness of a chess grandmaster. Teams would prepare all week with specific tactics to stop Barcelona, then kick off and immediately realize none of it mattered. 2009 became the year Barcelona achieved the impossible, winning 6 trophies in a single calendar year: La Liga, Copa del Rey, Champions League, Spanish Super Cup, UEFA Super Cup, and Club World Cup. Every single one of those trophies came through midfield domination so complete that finals felt like formalities. Manchester United got destroyed 2-0 in the Champions League final in Rome. Cristiano Ronaldo barely touched the ball, and Sir Alex Ferguson admitted afterwards that Barcelona were the best team he'd ever faced. The midfield didn't just win games, it broke opponents mentally, forcing them to watch helplessly as Barcelona passed circles around them. Spain saw what Barcelona was doing and copy-pasted the entire system onto their national team. 7 Barcelona players started the 2010 World Cup final. The midfield trio of Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets stayed intact, and Spain proceeded to win the World Cup plus Euro 2008 and Euro 2012 using the exact same suffocating possession game. Tiki-taka infected international football like a virus, every nation suddenly desperate to build their own version of Barcelona's midfield. Most failed miserably because you can't replicate once-in-a-generation talent mixed with perfect chemistry, but they tried anyway. Barcelona's midfield didn't just define an era, it became a cult that football still worships today. Real Madrid's Modric magic. Real Madrid winning 3 consecutive Champions League titles between 2016 and 2018 seemed impossible until you watched their midfield and realized it was inevitable. Luka Modric, Toni Kroos and Casemiro formed the perfect holy trinity, 3 players whose roles complemented each other so flawlessly that opposing teams couldn't exploit a single weakness. Casemiro destroyed attacks before they started, Kroos dictated tempo with passing so accurate it looked computer-generated, and Modric created magic out of thin air while covering more ground than anyone else on the pitch. 3 different skill sets, 1 unstoppable unit. The 2018 Champions League final against Liverpool in Kiev showcased everything this midfield could do. Madrid controlled 67% of possession, completed passing sequences that left Liverpool's pressing system gasping for air, and generally made the final look like a training exercise despite the 3-1 scoreline. Loris Karius's 2 horrific errors grabbed all the headlines, his mistakes replayed endlessly on social media, but they overshadowed a midfield clinic that would have won the match anyway. Modric and Kroos toyed with Liverpool's midfield like cats playing with wounded mice, always one step ahead, always in control. Modric winning the 2018 Ballon d'Or broke a decade-long stranglehold that Messi and Ronaldo had on football's biggest individual award. For the first time since Kaká in 2007, a midfielder stood on stage as the world's best player. Recognition that finally acknowledged what anyone watching Madrid knew already. Modric wasn't just good, he was generational, a midfielder who could defend like a destroyer, pass like a playmaker, and dribble like a winger, all while running 13 kilometers per match. The Croatian's engine never stopped, his brain never switched off, and his feet never made the wrong decision. 3 Champions League trophies in 3 years, achieved through midfield control so dominant it made Europe's best attackers irrelevant. Cristiano Ronaldo scored the goals and grabbed the glory, but Modric, Kroos and Casemiro were the foundation that made everything possible. Bayern Munich, Juventus, Liverpool, PSG all fell to the same midfield blueprint executed to perfection. Liverpool's heavy metal. Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool between 2018 and 2020 played heavy metal football, and Fabinho, Jordan Henderson and Georginio Wijnaldum were the headbangers destroying eardrums. These 3 covered 35 kilometers combined per game, running opponents into exhaustion through relentless energy that never stopped. Not the prettiest midfield in history, not the most technical, but absolutely the most physically brutal to play against. A 3-man hunting pack that chased every ball like their lives depended on it. The 2019 Champions League final against Tottenham showcased Liverpool's suffocating system. Spurs midfield mentally quit before halftime, while Fabinho, Henderson and Wijnaldum pressed and harried every touch. Gegenpressing forced errors every 6 seconds on average, panic spreading through Tottenham's players like a virus. Eriksen and Ali looked like they were drowning in quicksand, sinking deeper with every Liverpool tackle. 2-0, Liverpool's 6th European Cup, Tottenham never stood a chance. Fabinho arrived from Monaco in 2018 as the destroyer Liverpool needed, cleaning up everything with perfectly timed tackles. Henderson ran himself into the ground every match, captaining by example with work rate that shamed teammates into matching his intensity. Wijnaldum became the Swiss Army knife, playing whatever role the game required, always available, never flashy, always effective. Together they created chaos for opponents while maintaining perfect structure. The 2019-20 Premier League title erased 30 years of heartbreak with 99 points, 3 defeats all season, 25 points clear of Manchester City, midfield grinding opponents into dust weekly. Critics complained Liverpool lacked creativity, won through athleticism, not artistry. Completely missing that domination comes in many forms. Klopp's heavy metal midfield didn't care about beauty, they cared about winning everything, and they did exactly that. City's Rodri fortress. Rodri Hernandez went 74 consecutive games without losing for Manchester City between February 2023 and May 2024, shattering European football records held since the 1990s. The Spanish midfielder became a mathematical certainty. If Rodri played, City didn't lose. The 4 defeats City suffered during his streak all came with him suspended or injured, proving his presence was the difference between dominance and vulnerability. Guardiola built everything around this single player, and the results demolished any debate. The 2022 to to 23 treble season turned opponents into training cones. City's midfield completed over 700 passes per game, with Rodri conducting from deep, dismantling every tactical approach thrown at them. Arsenal pressed high and got bypassed. Bayern sat deep and got suffocated. Real Madrid matched them physically and got outworked. His ability to receive the ball under pressure, turn and spray 40-yard passes made City unstoppable. The Champions League final against Inter Milan became Rodri's coronation. Match locked 0-0, tension crushing the stadium. 68th minute. Rodri receives the ball on the edge of the box and calmly side-foots it past Onana into the bottom corner. A defensive midfielder scoring the winning goal in a Champions League final flipped 70 years of script. Haaland scored 52 goals that season, but Rodri's one mattered most. From Di Stefano in the 1950s to Rodri in 2023, 7 decades confirm the same truth. Midfield wins championships. Formations evolve, names change, but the principle stays constant. Control the middle, win everything. Rodri sealed the argument by winning the 2024 Ballon d'Or, the first pure defensive midfielder to claim football's biggest prize. City's treble, built on a Spanish metronome who never stopped ticking, never stopped proving that midfield is where football is won.